So now I'm going to go to questions for Natalia on teasing out some of her content area knowledge related to language learning. So Natalia, considering the rapid advancement in translation technology, which I know we've had some great conversations around, do you think the motivation for learning new languages will increase, decrease, or remain the same in the future?
How long has technology been advancing?
With translation?
A lot. Language learning. Let's go for language learning, right? I think we've had, you say in translation, for a long time. Now, I haven't seen the interest in learning a second language or a third language going down, really. I've never had trouble getting new students because students really want to learn, in this case, English. I don't see it that way. I think it's going to help the learning process. And for the translation part, I think it's going to speed it up. But I always tell you about this. Some things can be machine translated, and that's fine. And some things can't without the human intervention, because it requires a lot. It requires some sensitivity and some empathy when you produce a text that is going to be read by someone. So I don't think that there's going to be. One thing is the translation technology, and the other thing is the language learning. So what you mean is that as there's so much translation technology, there's no point in learning to speak the language.
I can speak from my own experience that how I read, because I think everyone might read this question a little differently too, based on like their interests. Like, so I spent last year working on learning Spanish. I started like my classes in October, and I essentially took classes from October to October. I started off like 2 to 3 days, I started off maybe 2 days a week. I went to 3 days a week, got to 4 days a week. And then, but I would say through that progression, my interests, prior to investing in that kind of learning was I saw, I had a desire to learn the language, and in trying to acquire the language, I saw these translation technologies. I would say as I saw translation technologies evolve, I actually became more interested in learning the actual language a little bit for myself. It was almost like I was trying to compete with the technology. My brain was like, it's kind of like maybe the little bit of the programmer in my head is like, I want to know how this works. I want to know how my brain works at learning and acquiring a language. So, also understanding now these technologies are becoming much more helpful. Even if I commit myself to learning the language, there's, tools that can help me. But I don't like to rely on those tools. I think like there's no easy way out with learning a language. Like you don't want to rely solely on a translator. But at the same time, knowing the tool might help you definitely may make you feel more confident in trying to move forward, because at least you're not stuck between like those 2 points of not knowing at all and understanding. So for me, it increased probably my confidence in trying to be consistent, because I could always double check it, maybe more consistently or more reliably with a tool on my phone or something like that. And I think people are probably in different stages of that, where like, if they need a language, they might feel like quickly they can go get a translation or something that will work for them.
Yeah, it really depends on what is it that you are aiming. What's the reason? For example, we wouldn't be having this conversation if I hadn't learned English, right? And we wouldn't have the same level of same flow if we were just using some tools.
Right.
And same with if we wanted to have this conversation in Spanish, how comfortable would you be if you
horribly
would it be like how it wouldn't be the same? I guess when it comes to language learning, it's AI can help you, for example, to help you to write an email when you are at work, or maybe you can have that little app that you speak to it and then they repeat maybe if you are in a country and you need something, but then, for instance, I have I'll start to have classes with a student, a woman who is living now in Dubai, and she's from Argentina, and she moved to Dubai, and she needs to communicate, and she has a need. She can have all the apps in the world, but she really wants to have it to the freedom to communicate. It gives you a lot of freedom. In this case, English is a language that gives you freedom and gives you opportunity beyond you can imagine. And for translation, again, it depends on what you want to get with the translation. Some translation is really, it's going to be gone, like the content is gone in a few days and it's completely irrelevant. But I don't know, a psychoeducational...
So ultimately, do you think it will, the interest in learning, do you think, like,
I think
I never increase. Do you think it'll have the same
with the
depth?
Yeah.
Like, are people going to like be interested only because they think they can have a shortcut, or will they be interested in that?
They will be interested because it's, take Duolingo, for example. People love that. I don't think it's enough to learn a language. Then you have, I downloaded a lot of these apps to check how they work, and they are great. You have one that is called Elsa, that you have like conversations with the AI and they check your pronunciation, and they are great. You can't spend the whole day using those apps. I think you need to be very strategic, right? And to know what you should be doing. And that is, I guess that's when you need someone to guide you.
And there's context too, like everyone wants to learn something for a different reason, right?
Exactly. And that is English for specific purposes. Not you want to learn for what purpose? Why do you want to learn English? This is...
And learning styles, like if I know, right. And people don't necessarily, I think these language apps, and our next question is actually about some of these technology language apps. I think many of them are good up until you want to use it for. I feel like they're good introductions to a language to get you confident to know that, okay, this is a structure that I can adapt to. But there's only a series of weeks or months before your introductory, before you really want to explore how to really use it in the way you want to use it, right? I want to learn more about how to use it at work or how to use it here. And then that's when your teacher becomes really dynamic, because they can either support that or they can figure out, and AI is going to have a hard time handling that.
Well, with personalization, you can do it, yeah. You can personalize it, or that's actually...
But you're personalizing it, and there's a power in a teacher also pushing back.
Right. And and I think that's where the teacher becomes worth whatever money you're paying.
Yeah.
It's because they specialize in something. You just can't teach everything. It's the same with translation. I just can't translate everything. You need to understand what you're doing. So that's the value. Your teacher should be something like, I'm an English teacher and I specialize in exams or in English for specific purposes or business English or...
Sure.
I think that's when you combine, I think it's the perfect combination of the apps and all everything that gives you the technology, and then there's the human there giving you the more personal touch. I think that's the best combination.
That is a good combination. Yeah. So on the same topic, kind of similar topic, do you think technology-based language learning apps are effective in the classroom?
Again, just like the ones that you mentioned before, they are as good as the teacher using them, or what you want to get from the app. For example, one that it's like doing quizzes or competitions and stuff, kids get excited, of course. But then, we got this, I don't know, we got these answers. Let's figure out what happened. Why did most of the class got them wrong? And maybe the ones that got it right. Sometimes I ask my students, the ones that get it right, or the ones that just try to explain to your
why.
How did you get it right? So maybe peer to peer, they just get a better, like, okay, now I get it. Now I get it. So as a tool, I think everything can work as long as you know what you want to get from it, and it's not just like let the thing teach.
Do it. Yeah, it's not going to take care of everything for you.
Take care of
Some people think that, and I think that's just those are people who maybe not super experienced at lifelong learning too. Like, you can't manage your expectations if you're in some things. Totally.
Also,
So,
not
yeah.
ignoring it, because
Right.
then there's the other, like ignoring, like, no, I'm not going to use this because it's worthless. No, I don't think ignoring or turning a blind eye to what is
Yep.
happening. We just can't ignore the reality.
So how about AI in this, in personalizing it? What do you think that direction's going to look like in the personalization of these types of tools?
For language learning, it could be really a game changer, because you can have I think we have talked about this, but having like a personal teacher when you have a question, right? And even if you get an answer and maybe you don't understand the answer, well, then you can ask your teacher. But making you like actively like I need to know this. Like, why did I make this mistake? Or how can I improve this? And to be critical about what the AI is giving them, right?
And are we going to lose touch with, like, I hear you talking about that understanding of like the value of it and the personalization and definitely I could see people progressing and having all sorts of amazing tools. And I could see the language teacher becoming, kind of like a coach role too, these types of scenarios. But I also see like over time, people losing context, because maybe in the next 10, 15 years, the coach role is kind of based on the context that person learned from the previous part of their life without AI, and then we're going to have people who like learned with AI, but they're not going to necessarily be great real world context.
Yeah.
Like I was watching a YouTube video last night from a channel that talks mostly about YouTube channels themselves, and they were releasing. They played like 8 videos at once, and they essentially said which one was not created with AI, and then they said they all were created with AI, and they were all like amazing. And they talked about which businesses these are going to put out of business, and how many like pieces of content now are going to be companies that used to focus on just selling content or certain types of video. Snippets or clips can now be created instantly, and but it's like this layering. It's almost like I'm just wondering if like that's going to happen, and with language, what that might look like. It's almost like going to a museum and seeing a painting of what a language used to look like. Like, it's like out of space, out of time, like feeling distant from like when people used to interact in person and have conversational experiences that weren't driven from technology. And do you see any problems or issues with how technology teaches language that is the nuances of how technology teaches language than maybe you might get from if you had done solely instruction with a person in person? Even the difference, like, I'm going to be very drastic. Say you taught someone one-on-one in a room versus using AI remotely coaching them. What would be the two differences in those types of learners? What benefits does the person have working with someone in a room one-on-one with you versus anything using technology?
I guess what you said about context is a big one, the nuances. I know that sometimes they complain about these apps because they make mistakes, as in like the use of a word. It really depends on the context. When you teach something, it's language, you need to be aware of the context. It's formal or it's informal. So Again, you mean sense, and also imagine learning Spanish. Spanish is spoken by millions of people in different countries, and we understand each other, but we do say things differently. So again,
That's true. You can't like generalize people's nuanced pieces of their language.
No,
So,
and there's no such thing neutral Spanish when they call it neutral Spanish. Well, there's no such thing as neutral Spanish, really. You can make it as neutral as possible, but no, there's not. We understand each other. Sometimes I do need some subtitles when I'm watching maybe someone from Colombia, or when they speak too quickly, I need subtitles to understand what they say in my own language. So just imagine.
So we'll just have to go into cloning specific language teachers who have very specific experiences they can pass on.
Yeah,
no, thank you. Thank you for that deep dive. That was good. No.
Thank you. That was fun.
All right. All right. So here we go. We're going to do our February 18th DFE poll questions. These are poll questions to engage our audience with us. Me and Natalie are going to throw our quick opinions, but we're also interested in what you think. So if you'd like to give us your opinion, go ahead and go to the link that you see on the screen and let us know. We're designing these to kind of get your opinion because we think they're interesting. So do you believe that digital literacy should be a core component of education from an early age, Natalia?
We talked about this.
Yes.
Yes, as long as it's age appropriate. When you talked about the little robots, I really like that idea. So yeah, as long as it's age appropriate and it takes into account the child's development, it's why not? But always like not pushing it hard. And sometimes they want kids to start reading and writing at an age that they really just don't need to be reading and writing yet. So don't push them. What about you? What do you think?
I agree with you. I definitely think age appropriateness, developmental level, but I do think there's something for every developmental level now, and I think I think what challenges people with this question is maybe their lack of kind of maybe understanding how deep technology is ingrained within our lives now. Like just remember, like, kids are handed devices at very young ages. So it begins to become more important earlier and earlier, just how it's done.
Yeah, but maybe having someone like really who specializes in child development and understanding what is age appropriate for their development in every stage. That
would be interesting.
Yeah.
Is the use of AI in creating personalized learning plans for students more beneficial or potentially harmful? I like this question.
I would say beneficial. What about you?
I like this question because I kind of feel a little bit of both. My immediate thought, like, a lot of the reading I've done is, yes, it's beneficial. It adapts to the learner. We talked about it in our last podcast, the adaptive learning platforms. Some of it, I'm just hoping that some of the tools also keep in mind the potential harmfulness of pre-prescribed suggestions to students that could be biased, or just, I think we're so early on in this that there could be systems that like are premature at making recommendations. And I would just hate to see that potentially happen. Yeah.
Where is the AI fitting, right?
For example, my son was playing a game last night. It's a web-based game, and it's not even really a game. And this is what I was trying to try to get him to understand this from my response. Like when your kids say something, then you respond a certain way so that they just learn from your response, maybe go on from them explaining everything. But it was basically, they give you like a list of words and you pull the words onto the screen, and then you pull a word like let me give a good example. I'll do one for Argentina, like obelisco or water, women, bridge, and it might say Puerto Madero.
Okay.
So it gives you like suggestion words, and then you drag and drop the words, and those words
Right.
create associations through the AI.
Uh-huh.
And so the game is kind of like you take a word, you take another word, and then so these associations are just like drawn into all these sorts of tangential places like politics, news, all these like kind of like, you know, creating a very mixed context. Like you could have like, you know, something that's very inappropriate, you know, created from just choices of words. So we're looking at a world that where like choices of words, like just when they're randomly placed together, create like something that is either inappropriate or not appropriate. We're relying on people's own ability to determine that. It's kind of dangerous, I think, too.
You're right. The bias too.
Yeah, the bias. The bias is automatic, you know, and people are not good at seeing their own bias. So, and we're automatically biased. Like, it's dangerous too. So, how important is it for EdTech tools to be designed with input from educators and students? How about you, Natalia, on that one? So, how important is input from educators and students on a tech tool?
I think it's really important.
Okay.
What do you think?
I mean, I think it has to be. It's nice to test them. I think there's danger, like back to the engagement question around engagement. I think companies that focus on engagement metrics a little bit too much might not be talking to enough educators, you know, because engagement, who are they to measure engagement when they're not in the classroom? You know, like they're not there. So engagement to them is a metric that they've predetermined. So I think there's a danger there. Do you think that technology and education widens the gap between high and low income communities?
Widens the gap. What a question. It shouldn't.
Technology, and this is technology and education, widens the gap between high and low.
Again, what about the resources that the school has, right? It has the potential to widen it.
Yeah, I agree with you there.
It has the potential. It shouldn't, but it has the potential. Right?
Yeah, I definitely agree
Can
with
you hold on a second?
Yeah.
It is asking me for food.
Yeah.
Okay.
You want to get some food? You want to take like a minute or two? Okay.
Yeah, give me a second, please.
Yeah, no problem. Okay. Yeah, so definitely I think that's what I like about that question, because I think it's thought provoking towards supporting more infrastructure in schools and just realizing like that if you don't embrace more progressive thoughts around technology, you could be widening a gap. You know what I mean? Yeah. And not even through your own.
Right. You have these tools are available, but they can't use them. They are available, but they don't.
And the gap, like when I was recently reading about the gap in AI education and then what that is, like just becoming another digital divide. I found that just kind of powerful. Yes, this is all these things, they're layers, just create new layers or divides, and you know, like access. If you don't have a device to start with, you're not going to get a level of comfortability and resources that you feel like you need to have. And what you don't, and it's one of those where you don't know what you don't know either, which is horrible. We live in a world where like opportunity is driven from that as well. What's the biggest challenge to integrating technology in classrooms? Budget. I like this one too. Budget constraints, training, or resistance to change. This is one that I would love to give out to a large group of people and say, is it budget, training, or people's resistance? What do you think?
It's the three things, but when if you ask someone who has the who makes the decisions. What is it that is keeping you from introducing more? So it's the three, but which is the biggest challenge? I think it depends on who, the school, the district, even the country. But I would say it's training, because as we said before, you have all this, but if there's no one who knows how to use them and to guide the students and everything, it's really, you have
So
everything.
I agree that training's important. But what I've noticed is in my world, and from what I read about the Conectar Igualdad, I have a balance of experiences that I completely believe what I read when I read the research too. So in my own experience, I focus on the mindset, and I think a lot of it starts with the resistance to change, like only because you need to have leadership that understands it's valuable to create change. And if you don't have like leaders who believe that these items are important, that you don't have people saying this is essential or you're going to fall behind, and then encourage and support others to take on these other parts, then you never get there. So that is kind of, I see that tied into that mindset of the resistance to change. So leadership needs to say, we really support this. And then when that happens, budgets change. And then you get into, all right, we care about this and we want this, and sometimes it's important to see it. Then that's when training can be the best. Because some of the research that was kind of disappointing in what I read was that when the devices were given out in Argentina, was part of it was on the ground floor, some of the teachers didn't see the technology tied enough to their curriculum, even though there was like teams supporting them. And then there was that resistance to implement it appropriately. And as soon as that happened, then the students kind of resisted, and then they didn't see a value in it. So that resistance to change to me has so many layers that I see that as the biggest one. And then budgets open up big time once people like see value. And training is just so much better in quality when the slightest bit of a window is opened up to possibilities and value, and this is important and change your life. So no, it's a good question though, because it's multi-level. Is there a risk that reliance on EdTech could diminish traditional learning skills like handwriting and mental arithmetic?
The quick answer to me is yes. What about you?
Yeah, yep. I would say the quick answer is yes on this, because, what spurs me to say yes quick is you're negating something before you're seeing what you're losing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's nice to write something down on a piece of paper really well because I had that training. I don't want to see, it's kind of sad to see someone who can't do that or take a really proper note.
Yeah.
I don't want, are we losing generations of kids who can't do that appropriately and need a device to do that all the time?
Yeah, right. So, yeah, exactly. Is it worth it? Or maybe even spelling correctly, because you have the thing, if you're writing on the computer, that is automatically corrected for you, so you don't even bother.
I went into
In Spanish, we have the graphical accent, and kids completely ignore it sometimes, most times. And it's part of the language, and it's because maybe when you write this, that the graphical accent is added to you. You don't need to bother to.
Mm-hmm.
So, what is it useful to? But I don't know. I have mixed feelings.
There's also this reminds me of an experience I had yesterday. The mental arithmetic part of this is I was in an Adidas store. Mm-hmm. And so I was in Adidas I knew a couple items that I wanted to grab them. I was looking to buy a pair of tennis sneakers and some socks. Got the items, went to the front of the store. I placed the items down on the counter, and then the young man says to me, "That will be $100." He didn't have to ring up the items. He didn't have to check the prices on any of the items. There was a scanner on the counter where the items sat that automatically priced everything.
Okay.
So that was kind of like a little mind blowing to me, because it was like instantly, like I hadn't had that experience yet. And I didn't even see like the technology in front of me. It was almost like you go into a store and you basically pick items off the shelf, and then you naturally put them down on the counter in front of the register, because you expect that they're going to have to scan the item. So what the sensor does is essentially scans everything and picks up everything that's in that area and prices it automatically, and then creates a total. And it's done. And, I said to the student, not the student, the young man working behind the counter, I'm like, well, that's good for you. It reduces your mistakes. But, it also reduces the number of people who will eventually be working in these stores. You know what I mean?
Of course. Yeah, you actually don't need that person there.
No, but it was kind of interesting. So, and yeah.
Luz, being able to do the math. Well, think about us remembering numbers now. Who remembers a phone number?
Right.
No one.
Right.
I remember when we didn't have mobile phones, we just remember.
But do we have more numbers? Do we have too many numbers to remember them all?
Yeah. Maybe it's not a good use for our memory. I think we should be using our memory for other things too, not just leaving everything to. Imagine passwords. I go crazy with passwords. I have so many passwords that drive me crazy. And
it's mind-blowing. That's really mind-blowing.
I try to remember because I want to make an effort, but I just can't.
What do we remember?
We remember very little, because now with addresses,
what do you remember?
For example.
In a given day, what do you remember?
Because everything right now we are just sending each other like the Google Calendar, so you don't have to remember anything. I do have my planner still. I write down things because I need to. Something that I
like that too. Yeah.
I need to write things down and to check things, and but really, if you wanted to not remember anything, you just could. I think you could. Addresses, for example. When I was younger, I would have to check for the address, and now we just we have.
And it's almost like there's definitely there's also information addiction too. I think I had this thought a lot this past week, and I didn't even think I'd talk about it now, but it came up 2 or 3 times, and it's now that I've been kind of studying YouTube a little bit, and I've been studying social media more. And I was in this call. I was in 2 calls this past week, right after we did the call on Friday, and one of them was with a community college, and the group of people I was talking with was a little bit older. And I told them, I said, we were working with some younger students, and I essentially told them, everything we do to make it important, unfortunately, we have to I don't want to say it the wrong way, but you have to bang it into people's heads 100 times. People are so used to getting 1,000 pieces of information sent to them a day that what is going to make your thing important? And if you don't get it 1,000 times, you're not going to get across to people at all. You have no value unless it's something they either really, really need or otherwise. So,
and how it is presented, the social media is telling you how to present, use few words, like how to present things, how to catch people's attention, right? Because it's we live in a world overload. It's information overload. You need to
tremendous overload.
The real state of people's attention,
it's tremendously crazy.
It's crazy. How do you do?
We did okay with that. 13 minutes. Let's do a little closure. We'll do a closure here, so I have another one.
Yeah.
Thank you, Natalia, for joining today. I appreciate your time and energy. It's always great to kind of reconnect on all these topics. No, I appreciate it.
Thank you. It's really fun always. Thank you.
And these poll questions also, I'll put these out on social media for see if we can get some people to respond to them, see what they think. But that was a good group, a little deeper dive on those ones, which is great.
Mm-hmm.
So this is something new we'd like to do. This is a kind of an introduction to education in Buenos Aires. I'm going to share a link from education. Let me get this going. Share my tab. Come on. You doing okay? There we go. So this is the Better Policies for Better Lives OECD website. Education GPS, the World of Education at Your Fingertips website. And this is an overview of Buenos Aires, Argentina, teachers and teaching conditions, primary and lower secondary education. So this is just like an overview. We're just going to cover some of this data very quickly. Also I'm actually going to share another site as well. Maybe we'll flip in between this site as well. Let me pop this other site open because this might be actually a better place to start. I actually thought that this was the one, so let me make sure I'm on the right. Why am I not seeing what I want to see?
The graphic?
Do you see that?
It was in the second link.
Are those two links too close together? Is that what I did? Did I move the links like too close? That link's like a little more interesting to look at. Where is the graphic?
I can see it's in the second link. It's education system overview. There's a link. That one. That's the link.
But I don't see the graphic when I open it up. Oh, let's.
You don't? I do.
Let me.
Or maybe below.
I'm gonna.
The two links. What about this one that I'm right now? This part. I clicked on this part.
If you want to share it, the center share screen.
Right.
Go ahead.
Because it's you can see it.
Because I'm having trouble like opening the one. It flashes. I see the graphic for like 2 seconds and then it disappears. Yes, that's the one. So would you mind throwing that link in the chat just so I can see it as well as you see it? And I'll let you this is the part that I was thinking you could kind of walk us through a little bit. Sorry, I can't even access my own. Why am I not seeing it? What am I not clicking on, Natalia? I'm going to let you talk us through this, right? You see what's going on here, right? With the graphic.
Now it disappeared.
It disappears. I don't know what's happened.
Disappeared.
Well, you know what we'll do? We'll skip the graphic and we'll just kind of get into these kind of notes.
Or maybe you just copy the graphic and we can see if I can.
It just doesn't even pop up
get
for
it
me.
Again.
It doesn't even pop up.
Very weird.
It is weird because it like pops up but then it goes away. I'm just seeing if like any of these have the graphic. All right, we'll go through the data because the data here is actually kind of interesting. So I really like this site. This gives an overview. What I'd like to do is definitely check out a lot of different countries here, but I definitely want to start with Argentina, Buenos Aires. And this data, from what it appears to be specific to Buenos Aires, which, is a large city in Argentina, not the entire country. So I think we want to keep that in mind as we look at the information, around teachers, teaching conditions, primary and lower secondary education.
Then there's the province of Buenos Aires and then
the city, right? Is it correct? Right? There's the province, the
here when
city.
It says CABA, when it says CABA, it means the city of Buenos Aires.
The city.
Which is just the city. We have the autonomous city of Buenos Aires, and then you have the province of Buenos Aires, which is huge, enormous.
I'm just intrigued that they focused that down. I'm wondering why they did that. Was it difficult to get data outside of the city, or I was kind of curious.
Maybe yes, it's too big. Buenos Aires, the province is huge.
Right, but I was thinking even but why don't they even include Cordoba? And when you're trying to do all of Argentina, I just noticed that this site particularly, I didn't find even the other cities either. So I was kind of surprised.
Well, yeah, that's a big problem in Argentina. It's like everything is city of Buenos Aires, right? So most of it is like, but yeah, it's a huge country and
So
there are schools everywhere.
there
Yeah.
was some interesting points in here, though. Teaching was the first choice career for 53% of teachers in Caba. So what do you think of that? First choice career. So that's lower than the 67% of these other countries that they recognize. So lower percentage. You, when people become teachers, is your perception that most people want to become teachers? Is it kind of like a second option?
First, yes, I think that the first option is, yeah, to become a teacher. And as it says there, I think it's the opportunity to influence on children's development. I think most people get into teaching, I guess because of that, because it's not the best paid job in this country, right? We talked about this. I don't think they are well paid for the work they do. So we always think about teaching here as, well, it's because it's your heart is in teaching, not because you want to become rich from it. So
Right. And what do you, it looks like the population is consistent age-wise with other countries too. 3 out of 8 are in their 50s. Yeah, in terms of, and this 2018, so it's a little bit older data. In terms of classroom environments, relations between students and teachers are positive. 97% agree that they get along well. Low
I think
bullying.
I think also that, well, yeah, the bullying, as far as I'm concerned, I mean, it does happen, but it's not that
Prevalent.
Yeah. As for the age of teachers, that is interesting. Maybe there has been a declining people wanted to get into teaching
I think that's happening around the world.
around the world. There's a declining.
I don't think the pandemic helped either.
No.
So
No.
yeah.
For instance,
yeah.
The school where I teach, they offer me to teach in secondary school English, and because I mean I declined last year, and then they got a teacher, and that teacher has quit, and then they asked me again. So they are finding it hard to get an English teacher, and there are lots of English teachers. So maybe because there are other ways in which we can.
And I would imagine that's even more prevalent in Argentina than maybe even here, where you have a lot. There's a lot of options around the same level of pay for teachers to do things that economically can work for them, whether working remote or teaching English, if you have that skill set, right? Like, where here, yes, people want to learn other languages, but that's a small percentage of maybe a person's income.
Yeah.
So they note this 10% migrant background, which is lower. I'm guessing that's in Caba, and I'm guessing that's a lot. You probably don't have a tremendous amount of transitory population in Caba itself. Mostly people who are in the city or staying in the city.
Yeah.
Like you're not getting influxes of people migrating in. So what do you think about this one? 9% of teachers agree or strongly agree with the statement that their profession is valued in society, which is
it's very low. 9%, super low. That's what I was telling you. It's like you need to just have the heart to be a teacher, because really the society is not going to. And last year at the end of the year, I thanked my kids' teachers. Like personally, I send them a really thoughtful message, because they are not valued enough, and they like early education. It has a tremendous effect on a person's life, future, and it's not valued enough. It's like they are just playing there, and you're just changing diapers, and no, it's not that. So I specifically send them a message. Telling them your work is super valuable. So just imagine, like 9%, that's very low.
And
People are
8%
not.
this 8% of teachers report experiencing stress in their work a lot is kind of high too.
Yeah.
I mean, the average is 18, but I still think 10%, which that's close to, a lot of stress. That's an interesting way of saying it. 15% of teachers report participating in collaborative professional learning at least once a month. That's a little low,
Yeah.
but I feel like that 21% is kind of high across the board for them. 14% of teachers report that they had never received feedback in the schools. Wow, that's kind of high. The average is 10. So now what I liked about this website and why I kind of grabbed it, and I kind of want to we can always kind of go back to this with Buenos Aires and even Argentina in general, is it has who the teachers are, looks like a 15-year. I thought this was interesting. The total working years as a teacher in Buenos Aires is comparatively short at the primary level, 15 years. So that seems low.
That is
I think
they
that's
work for 15 years.
I think so.
Working as a
Working
teacher.
years, yeah. In the lower level.
Well, here teachers, is it do they retire younger than other people there in the States? Because here they do.
Sometimes it depends on when they start, but it's never 50 years.
They, I mean, it's,
I'm wondering,
no, it's not 50, but 50 something, and they just can retire.
In the United States?
Here in Argentina.
Oh, wow.
I don't know, 54 or something. As long as you have, obviously, as long as you have the amount of
years
working. Yeah, they are the youngest profession that can retire.
That's good.
Yeah.
So this talks about proportion of female principals in primary education is one of the largest. They have induction programs. So the professional development, a small percentage of teachers participated in network formed specifically for professional development, 22%. A large percentage of teachers feel professional development activities in 12 months prior to the survey had a positive impact, 93%. That's good. Now, also, what I liked about this was they had ICT for teaching. So I did want to call attention to this. A small share of primary education teachers received formal training using ICT for teaching. So about 51% had some sort of technology education for teaching within primary. Yeah. Now, when they speak of primary education, could you give me an idea?
Primary is
speaking of specifically.
Yeah, because you have four levels actually. You have kinder, you have then elementary school, middle school, and high school, right? Mm-hmm. So our system is kinder until 5, and then until the 7th grade. So it's grade 1, grade 7, that is primary school, and then secondary school goes from, let's say, 8 to 12, or yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, that's primary, secondary school. We don't have 3 levels.
Could you speak to a little bit of the experience of someone looking to become a teacher, like their typical path, just typical from path? University? They have to decide that when they enter 4-year university, or is it a 5-year program usually?
It's either 4 or 5 years. I think it depends on if you want to become a primary school or a secondary school teacher. And then you get credits, especially to get into public schools.
Okay.
You need to take courses and get credits to become they give you what you call when you become we say titular, right? So when it's your position and nobody can take it from you.
Okay,
it's not I don't know exactly the term in English. You get that position, and really it's yours until the tenure. That's it. That's the word. They work and get these credits and get their tenure because, at some, that you are good for until you retire.
Right.
it's very possible that you will just have a job until you just retire, because it's, unless you do something really bad,
So
you're going to get salary.
I'm going to, that's good though. It's good. It's job security.
Yeah.
So
It's job security, yes.
very good.
Yes.
Let me get my slideshow going. As soon as I was on this. So the next topic I'd like to discuss is some global careers in tech that I kind of see burgeoning. I recently did some research related to EdTech, tech, career skills, some of the hottest not teaching positions, but technology roles coming up. Interested in the technology skills that are, basically burgeoning, what people are looking for. And I'm very interested in how there's a growth in LATAM with additional IT skills in demand. So I'm just going to share some of the documents I found related to this. And feel free to chime in, Natalia. One research article that from Bloomberg Linnea, what are the most in-demand tech skills? Let me share this out. So I was drawn to this. There's a couple articles that I thought were particularly powerful. This one I found from Bloomberg, one of the most in-demand tech professions in LATAM in 2023. It's a little bit older. I have some more recent articles coming up. This one I cited because Latin American companies reinventing themselves within the ongoing accelerating digital transformation. They need skilled talent and experts consulted by Bloomberg Linnea have shared their views. And so what this article goes on to say is that there is a huge demand and a shortage of talent because so many businesses are looking to digitize their strategies. And 68% are reported finding difficulty in finding the help they need. That these are some of the most in-demand areas are computing, technology project managers, data analysis specialists, metaverse construction specialists, 5G specialists, blockchain, software developers. It's kind of a random list here. There's some of the other articles I want to share, but the key point out of this article that I was drawn to was just Tom having this big demand. I was mostly intrigued by, the transformation of technology, driving change as a whole was what drove me to this. And then I found this article, which I found very interesting. This was from Forbes. So I was kind of naturally drawn to this article from Forbes because Forbes is a pretty good source in the United States for business information in general. And this one talks about how Latin America is quickly becoming a leading supplier of technology to North America, which so this is kind of like you need people and we're taking people, there's kind of this flux. And what I was drawn with here was this to it. Brazil alone was a beneficiary of over 45 million in total IT investments. And the Latin America, basically the exchange of talent and the international perspective. So I just want to find the part. Collaboration between universities, businesses, and other stakeholders helps stimulate interest in developer jobs. Sao Paulo recently launched a training collaboration with Amazon Web Services. Latin America has become a major force with 156% more businesses wanting to hire in the region. And this spoke to United States looking to create, basically relationships for finding talent. So defining the right partner for running a LATAM operation, vetting candidates from LATAM, don't only pay attention to technical things. I'm assuming that speaks to social skills. Well, yep, social, behavioral, soft skills, which are always talked about in roles, especially with opposite of tech roles. Needs and goals, consider the necessary infrastructure. So this speaks to a lot of American companies potentially, partnering with LATAM, but also recognizing How are they going to find the help to do this in terms of technology skills? So I found that to be interesting. This was the article that I started with, which was from Latam Recruit, which in a theory, I just found this to be interesting to start with at all. Just an art, from Latam Recruit, focus on exploring the hottest tech professions in 2023. So I thought this would be something that we could continue to revisit in the podcast, but I wanted to speak to just software developers and engineers as they came up first on the list here. But you can see it's also mentions as data science and scientists and analysts, cybersecurity, cloud computing specialist, artificial intelligence and machine learning, UX UI designers, blockchain developers. And, I cited this demand for tech skill professionals is higher than ever with software developers. And essentially what I just wanted to draw a conclusion with on this is that with software developers, back to that conversation we had with Coder House. And so I went to the Coder House website, and if you look, their resources are essentially, their courses are aligned essentially with these areas that these top jobs are in.
Yeah.
So, people who are looking to, upskill, work in a specific area of tech can upskill in ways directly through resources, through companies like Coder House and such, to kind of get skills that can kind of prepare them for these jobs. And one thing I found interesting was, you could probably read it if I get to the, I want my English version, but they had an opportunity here for, I'm not getting my English version. I want to be able to read about the opportunity. Do you see the offer where they're this right here? Coder Becca. I'm not sure how to, can you just read this a little bit of this?
Yeah, it says our mission is to democratize education.
Yeah.
Like democratize. I always have trouble with that word. Democratize quality education. That's why we offer a 70% grant or scholarship, so you can train and grow professionally. So they also, why do you think there's so much, why are they looking at Latin America to get this talent?
Price.
Because of the price, right?
Yep.
Because it's more convenient.
Economics.
Right. So,
and it's a market. Market size. Business intelligence has just grown so quickly. It's a global world. We no longer live in a world that one country can survive solely on its own. Countries need to have allies. They need to have economic allies. They need to have, basically products are global. So many more global products, and you need global talent. You need, there are different economies at scale. So I think there's multiple reasons. The first reason is there are opportunities for people from Latin America to increase their pay through working globally. Yep. And then there's also the benefits to countries like the United States to increase their market size by expanding globally. So it works both ways beneficially. And eventually these models are going to actually level the playing field in some ways because they'll have to. But I wanted to just bring this connection to, there's this incredible demand. It's going to continue to grow. Companies like Coder House are providing additional kind of support for people to upskill into these roles. It's definitely a topic I kind of want to continue to discuss here on the podcast, and just how, a lot of these skills and the vocabulary, the language, the courses, the different opportunities, I think are going to be tremendously kind of beneficial to kind of keep talking about, going forward. But I appreciate your time.
Coder House.
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, Coder House talks to exactly those people who want to work for the United States.
Right.
They target you want to actually, the skills that people are, the demand from and earn a better salary.
And it
That's
will,
actually
and it will like it's, you know, the job market, the skills, everything's going to continue to grow. So, well, thank you again. You know, it's always a pleasure. We always have more to talk about. So I look forward to kind of getting together again soon. But thank you for your time today.
Great talk, Dan. Thank you.
No
Goodbye.
problem. Bye-bye.